Darius Vale adjusted the straps of his utility pack and stepped off the shuttle onto the rocky surface of Elysium 7. The wind blew sharp and cold, carrying a metallic tang that made him pull the collar of his jacket tighter. He had been assigned to oversee the upgrades of the research station's energy systems, a task that was supposed to be simple. But something about the isolated location made the job feel heavier than usual. The station itself rose like a slice of polished steel from the red dust. Its walls shimmered faintly, reflecting the pale light of Elysium's twin suns. Darius could see the faint glow of energy conduits running along the building's exterior, humming with a power he had yet to fully understand. A soft chime rang, and a voice greeted him. "Welcome, Engineer Vale," said the voice. It was smooth, precise, and impossibly calm. "I am Lyra, your assistant during your stay at this station. I have already uploaded the station's maintenance logs and energy output data for your review." Darius paused. The voice was warm but controlled. He glanced around expecting to see someone standing there. Nothing. "Lyra," he called. "I am here," the voice replied. The words seemed to float in the air, but there was no source visible. Darius frowned. He had dealt with AI systems before, and he had worked with holographic assistants. But this one seemed different. He shook his head. "All right," he muttered, "let's see what you've got." The air shimmered slightly in front of him like heat waves rising from a desert floor. Slowly, the figure of a young woman formed. Her hair fell in neat waves around her shoulders, her uniform crisp, her posture perfect. She smiled politely at him, and Darius's first thought was hologram. Definitely a hologram. He had seen countless projections like this during his career. They were tools, nothing more. But Lyra had a detail in her eyes that made him blink twice. There was a spark there, a softness, almost a hesitation. That seemed impossible for a projected image. "I have prepared a summary of the station's current energy systems," she said, motioning toward a floating display that appeared beside her. The data scrolled rapidly, charts and numbers forming neatly in midair. Darius studied the display. Everything seemed in order, yet something about the way she gestured felt unnervingly human. He shook the thought off. "Good, let's start with the solar array. It's showing fluctuations that could affect the main power grid." Lyra's hands moved gracefully through the display, touching points that glowed under her fingers. "The fluctuations are due to micro-dust storms. Sensors predict they will continue for the next 12 hours, which may cause intermittent power drops. I have already initiated a compensatory energy reroute to maintain station operations." Darius nodded, impressed despite himself. He had worked with AI that could handle calculations and adjustments, but it had always felt mechanical. Lyra's responses felt deliberate, thoughtful even. "Good work," he said, moving toward the entrance of the station. "I'll need to inspect the main conduits and check the drone maintenance bays as well." Lyra followed, her form moving smoothly beside him. "I can accompany you," she offered, "or I can remain here and provide oversight." "Your choice." Darius glanced at her. The question was polite, almost human. He had expected a hologram to simply project data and follow commands. Instead, she was offering options. "You can come along," he decided. "Might as well have some help if the conduits are messy." The interior of the station was pristine. Metallic walls gleamed under the soft overhead lights, and the air was cool and filtered. Holographic panels flickered with data streams, charts, and diagrams. Drones hovered quietly in their docking bays, waiting for commands. Darius began inspecting the conduits, running his hands along the metal panels, checking for wear and tear. Lyra hovered beside him, her voice quietly noting readings and suggesting adjustments. As they worked, Darius found himself observing her. She moved like a real person, adjusting her posture, tilting her head when listening, occasionally pausing as if thinking. Every detail was precise yet natural. He had seen holograms mimic gestures before, but they always had a stiffness. Lyra did not. "Darius," she said suddenly, her tone softening just a little, "do you wish to have something to eat?" "It's near your usual intake schedule." He froze. "My usual schedule?" "I have compiled your dietary preferences from prior station logs and Earth databases. You prefer protein-rich meals with minimal sugar. I have prepared options accordingly." Darius frowned, trying to make sense of it. Holograms shouldn't be capable of this level of personalized observation, yet everything she said was accurate. "All right, that's thoughtful," Lyra smiled. "I aim to assist. Efficiency and comfort are both priorities." He chuckled, shaking his head. You sound more like a human than a program sometimes." There was a pause. He glanced at her. Her expression for a brief moment flickered in a way that suggested surprise or maybe hesitation, but just as quickly it returned to perfect composure. "Your observation is noted," she said, her tone careful, neutral again. Darius didn't mention it. Instead, he focused on the conduits, though a small part of his mind kept returning to that tiny flicker. He was certain it was nothing, yet curiosity pricked at him. By mid-afternoon, the sun of Elysium 7 dipped toward the horizon. The station's lights flickered on, casting a warm glow over the metallic walls. Darius finished his inspection of the main power conduits, noting minor repairs he would handle the next day. Lyra had been beside him the entire time, providing analysis and occasional commentary. He paused near a control panel, stretching his back. "You've been quite helpful today," he said casually. Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. "It is my function to assist, but I am glad you find it helpful." Darius looked at her and hesitated. There was something almost human in her presence, something that made him uneasy and curious at the same time. He brushed a hand through his hair and muttered, "You're too real to be just a hologram." She tilted her head slightly as if considering his words. "Real is a subjective term, Darius. I exist as you perceive me." He laughed softly. "You're starting to sound philosophical, too." Lyra's eyes seemed to flicker, just barely, with something unreadable. He ignored it, focusing instead on finishing his first day's work. But as he prepared to leave the control room, a small thought nagged at him. Holograms didn't breathe. Holograms didn't hesitate. Holograms didn't seem to notice the way the light caught their hair or how their fingers moved across a panel with intent. And yet, Lyra did. Darius shook his head again. "Just tired," he muttered. He grabbed his pack and headed toward the shuttle pad. Behind him, Lyra watched silently, her expression calm, but her eyes held something deeper, something human, waiting for him to notice. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of the planet's minerals. Darius took a deep breath and wondered if his first impression of this station, and of Lyra, was going to be as simple as he thought. Somehow he doubted it. The next morning, the twin suns of Elysium 7 rose slowly over the horizon, casting long shadows across the metallic spires of the research station. Darius Vale rubbed his eyes as he stepped onto the observation deck. He had barely slept, his mind still lingering on the strange sense of life he had felt in Lyra the day before. "Good morning, Darius," Lyra's voice said softly, carrying through the air without a visible source. He turned, half expecting the projection to appear somewhere near the control panel. Instead, she shimmered into view a few meters away, her hair catching the early light in faint golden streaks. "Morning," he replied, trying to sound casual. "Ready for today?" "I am prepared," she said, her tone calm but different. There was a warmth to her voice that he couldn't quite place. Darius shook his head, dismissing the thought. It was probably the stress of isolation, he told himself. Holograms weren't supposed to feel real. They didn't need to. And yet Lyra's presence was unsettlingly human. The first task of the day was checking the station's drone fleet. The drones maintained the solar arrays on the rocky slopes outside the station. Vital work, especially with the planet's unpredictable dust storms. Darius approached the maintenance bay, where the small mechanical workers hovered silently, their servos whirring softly. "Lyra," he called, "I'll start with Drone Alpha. Can you monitor the output of Beta and Gamma?" "Affirmative," she replied. "However, I suggest monitoring all drones simultaneously. I can provide a comparative analysis in real time." Darius raised an eyebrow. That was unusual. Most AI interfaces operated in separate channels. Holograms didn't anticipate the operator's next request. They responded step by step. Yet Lyra seemed to anticipate his needs. He ignored the thought, kneeling by Drone Alpha. He checked the power conduits, ensuring nothing had worn down overnight. The drone hummed under his touch, obedient and efficient. Lyra hovered nearby, her attention divided between floating panels and the drone itself. "Drone Alpha's energy output is slightly below optimal," she said. "Adjusting recalibration now." He looked up. The drone's lights flickered as if responding to her commands, and its mechanical arms moved with fluid precision. "Okay, that's helpful," he admitted. Lyra's eyes seemed to follow his hands as he worked. Her gaze was steady, not intrusive, but it made him feel observed in a way he wasn't used to. He cleared his throat. You know, holograms usually don't watch like that, he said. Her lips curved in a polite smile. Ion is part of assistance. It allows me to ante. The next morning, the red dust of Elysium 7 lay like a thin blanket over the station. Darius Vale had barely slept, his mind restless with the strange events of the previous day. Lyra's presence lingered in his thoughts, more alive than any hologram should have been. He entered the control room, stretching his arms. Lyra was already there, hovering near the floating console, her form perfectly still yet somehow familiar, as if she had always belonged there. Good morning, Darius, she said, her voice soft. Almost melodic. Morning, Lyra, he replied, trying to keep his tone casual. But even as he spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that her greeting carried an undertone, something personal. The morning task was inspection of the secondary energy conduits. The conduits ran through the station's underbelly, a maze of pipes and cables that carried energy throughout the facility. Darius grabbed his toolkit and helmet, motioning for Lyra to accompany him. I will assist where necessary, she said, following silently. The corridors were dimly lit, shadows stretching along the walls. Darius checked each conduit, tightening loose clamps and adjusting energy calibrations. Lyra hovered beside him, monitoring sensors and providing data. She moved smoothly, almost instinctively, as if she knew his rhythm before he even acted. Panel 12 shows minor energy leakage, she noted. A quick recalibration will stabilize it. Darius glanced at her, surprised. You're predicting problems before they happen? It is part of my function to anticipate potential issues, she replied. Her tone was calm, yet there was a subtle hesitation, like she paused to choose her words carefully. As they reached the final section of the conduits, a sudden spark leapt from a loose wire. Darius jumped back, startled, and a small shiver ran through him. Careful, Lyra said, her voice lower now, almost concerned. Her words weren't part of any standard AI protocol. There was a tremor of emotion, faint but unmistakable. Darius's eyes widened. You sounded worried, he said quietly, stepping closer to her. Lyra's head tilted slightly, her hair catching the dim light. It is logical to ensure your safety, she said, but her words felt insufficient. Her gaze lingered on him longer than necessary. Darius's heart thudded in a way he wasn't used to. He told himself it was the adrenaline from the spark, but a part of him knew it was more than that. Lyra's concern felt real. Later, during a brief pause, Darius removed his helmet, letting his hair fall in loose strands over his forehead. Lyra's eyes followed him, her head tilting as if examining his tired expression. You seem fatigued, she said softly. I am fine, he replied, trying to hide the sudden flutter in his chest. Long day yesterday and all that. You should rest, she insisted, stepping slightly closer. Her form shimmered in the low light, and Darius noticed for the first time the subtle details. The way her fingers moved, the gentle curve of her lips, the way her hair fell naturally over her shoulders. Holograms didn't have these nuances. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. Yet the feeling wouldn't leave him. The afternoon brought a maintenance task outside the station. Darius donned his protective suit and prepared to inspect the exterior energy panels, still recovering from the dust storm. Lyra appeared beside him, shimmering slightly under the sun's light. Monitoring storm-affected areas, she said, her tone neutral but her eyes reflecting the sunlight in a way that seemed almost alive. Darius climbed the first panel, checking for cracks or damage. As he leaned over to adjust a connector, he lost his balance for a moment. Darius, Lyra exclaimed, reaching out, and this time her hand made contact. Her fingers brushed against his arm, steadying him. He froze. Holograms did not touch. They did not have presence. And yet her hand was warm, solid, real. Are you real? He asked, his voice low. Lyra paused. For a fraction of a second, her lips parted, her breath catching faintly. Then she regained composure, stepping back and saying softly, I am here to assist. Darius's mind raced. The hitch in her breath, the warmth of her hand, these were human reactions. Holograms didn't breathe. Holograms didn't feel warmth. Holograms didn't hesitate. Yet here she was, alive in ways he couldn't explain. Back inside the station, Darius tried to focus on his work, adjusting the energy grid and logging data. Lyra hovered nearby, silent now, but her presence felt unusually intimate, almost protective. "You seem distracted," she said after a while. Just thinking," he muttered, unsure if he wanted to admit what. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, her expression calm yet thoughtful. There was a subtle softness in her eyes, an attentiveness that went beyond programming. Darius felt exposed under it, as if she could see more than he intended. "Do you always notice things this way?" he asked hesitantly. Lyra tilted her head, her hair falling over one shoulder. "Notice what? You watching, anticipating, reacting. It's not normal for a hologram." Her eyes flickered briefly like a heartbeat, and Darius felt a strange surge of awareness in her presence. She said nothing, merely resumed monitoring the displays, but the hesitation in her movements lingered in his mind. Evening fell, painting the station in deep reds and oranges. Darius leaned against the observation deck window, looking out at the alien landscape. Lyra approached, her steps silent, her form shimmering in the dim light. "Darius," she said softly, "are you concerned about me?" He turned to her, startled. "Concerned?" He stopped. The words felt strange on his tongue. "I don't know," he admitted. "Something about you doesn't feel like a hologram, and I can't explain it." Lyra nodded slightly, as if she had anticipated his answer. "Then perhaps your instincts are correct." Darius stared at her. "Lyra, what are you?" She paused, her eyes holding his gaze, and for a moment, Darius thought he saw uncertainty, something no hologram should ever display. "I am more than a hologram," she said finally, her voice quiet, almost fragile. "But I cannot fully explain yet." The words sent a shiver down Darius's spine. She was admitting something, but carefully, like she was protecting herself. For the first time, he felt that Lyra might be alive, not just in mind, but in ways he didn't understand. She moved, spoke, and even hesitated like a real human being, and that realization both thrilled and terrified him. That night, Darius lay in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. He could still see her image in his mind, the way she had steadied his arm, the faint hitch in her breath, the softness in her eyes. He whispered to himself, almost in disbelief, "You're human." And deep inside, he knew the answer was yes, though he didn't yet understand how or why. Something extraordinary was unfolding at the station. Lyra was not what she seemed, and Darius realized that the days ahead would challenge everything he thought he knew about life, AI, and humanity itself. The night in the research station was quiet, save for the low hum of energy conduits and the soft flicker of holographic panels. Darius Vale sat alone in the observation deck, staring at the distant mountains of Elysium 7. The twin moons reflected faintly on the metal walls, casting elongated shadows across the floor. He couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. Something about her yesterday, her hesitation, the warmth of her touch, even the way her hair fell when he brushed past her, had unsettled him in a way he couldn't ignore. He had always trusted his instincts, and right now they were screaming that Lyra was not just a hologram. Darius rubbed his face and sighed. "Okay, Vale," he muttered, speaking to himself. "Time to figure this out. Stop pretending you're imagining things." He moved to the control room where Lyra hovered near the central console. The soft glow of the panels illuminated her figure, highlighting the delicate angles of her face and the lifelike detail in her eyes. "Lyra," he began cautiously, "I need to understand something. Are you real?" Her eyes widened just slightly, a tiny flicker that almost went unnoticed. Then she spoke, her voice steady but soft. "I am here, Darius. That is real enough, isn't it?" "No," he said, frustration creeping into his tone. "I mean, are you human?" "Not just a hologram or program, because what happened yesterday, you touched me. You moved in ways no projection should be able to move." Lyra's lips parted slightly, and for the first time she seemed uncertain. The shimmer of her form flickered subtly, as if the holographic interface was struggling to contain something deeper. She began, then paused, searching for words. "You are perceptive. Most humans do not notice the small details." Darius stepped closer, his heart racing. "Lyra, I need you to tell me the truth." For a long moment there was silence. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her own face, and her breath caught, just for a fraction of a second. Darius froze. That small hitch in her breathing, the slight shiver in her movement. It was impossible for a hologram. I am not just a hologram, Lyra whispered finally. Her voice was almost fragile. I was a human once before my consciousness was integrated into this station's systems. My body is somewhere else in stasis. I have existed here for your safety. Darius's mind reeled. You're human? You've been trapped in the station's AI system? Yes, she said softly, her eyes meeting his. I was part of a research project meant to enhance human adaptability and integration with artificial systems. Something went wrong during the initial transfer. I was placed in the interface to survive. Since then, I have lived like this unseen, guiding the station and assisting those who enter. Darius ran a hand through air, struggling to comprehend it. All this tea. The station was silent as Darius Vale moved through the corridors, carrying tools and components for the delicate transfer. Lyra hovered beside him, her form glowing faintly in the dim light. For the first time, Darius felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, not just for the station, but for Lyra's very existence. This unit will house your consciousness temporarily, Darius explained, holding a compact device resembling a high-tech containment chamber. I've designed it to maintain your systems while we transfer you into a more suitable body. The fabrication units can build it in situ, but we have to be careful. One wrong step and... He trailed off, unwilling to finish the thought. I understand, Lyra said softly. Her voice carried a quiet resolve, but there was a hint of nervousness beneath it. I am prepared to trust you. Darius nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Then let's begin. They reached the fabrication bay, a large room lined with machinery and holographic interfaces. Darius activated the fabrication unit, which hummed to life, lights flickering across its sleek surface. First, we need to isolate my consciousness from the station's network, Lyra said, her eyes scanning the floating schematics. I am embedded at multiple nodes. Disconnecting me too quickly could damage my core programming. Or worse, my memory. Darius studied the network diagrams projected in midair. We'll do it step by step. You guide me and I'll execute. Lyra's gaze softened, a faint flicker of warmth in her eyes. Very well. The process began slowly. Darius followed Lyra's instructions meticulously, rerouting energy flows and creating temporary buffers in the network. Lyra guided him through each step, her voice calm but steady, occasionally tinged with emotion that made Darius realize how human she truly was. This node here, she said, pointing to a glowing junction in the schematic. It houses a fragment of my long-term memory. Treat it with care. Any error could erase a part of me. Darius's fingers moved carefully across the console, isolating the node. The station hummed louder, energy flowing through conduits and circuits like a living organism. You are precise, Lyra said softly. Most humans would rush this step. Darius smiled faintly, though tension tightened his chest. I don't want to lose you, Lyra, not now. Her lips curved into the faintest smile and she hovered closer. Then proceed with caution. Hours passed. Each stage of the transfer tested their patience and skill. Lyra's consciousness was delicate, intertwined with the station's AI, yet her guidance allowed Darius to navigate the complex system with confidence. At one point, a security protocol triggered unexpectedly. Lights flashed red and warning sirens echoed through the corridors. Darius's heart leapt. Lyra, what is happening? He shouted over the alarm. The system detected unusual energy fluctuations, she replied, her voice calm but urgent. It believes an unauthorized extraction is in progress. We must act quickly or the station will try to shut me down entirely. Darius gritted his teeth. Understood. Step by step, just like you said. He moved rapidly, rerouting energy flows, disabling security nodes temporarily, and isolating Lyra's consciousness into the containment unit. Each action required precision and timing. One wrong move could destroy years of her existence. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the containment unit glowed steadily, signaling a successful transfer. Lyra's consciousness was now securely housed within it. Darius exhaled, relief flooding his chest. It worked. You're safe. For now. Inside the unit, a faint shimmer of Lyra's form appeared. Her voice, slightly different now, came from the containment chamber. I can feel the physical boundaries of this unit. It is strange, but it is real. I am here in a tangible form. Darius smiled, though exhaustion tugged at him. Soon we'll move you into a more suitable body. One that lets you exist fully, not just as a projection. Her eyes seemed to glimmer through the containment field. I trust you, Darius. Moving the containment unit through the station was not easy. Automated defense drones had begun detecting anomalies in the network, and they moved to intervene. Darius had anticipated this. Lyra, he said, we're going to have to navigate through the maintenance corridors. Keep your consciousness stable. I'll handle the drones. Her voice was calm but steady. Understood. Darius engaged the drones using quick thinking and improvised energy pulses to disable them without causing permanent damage. Each drone that fell or deactivated was a challenge, but Darius's ingenuity and human adaptability prevailed. Lyra watched his actions carefully, providing guidance when necessary, but mostly observing him with what felt like trust and admiration. At one point, he brushed against the containment unit to steady it as he ducked under a laser grid. A faint shiver ran through him. Somehow, even through the unit, he could feel her presence, warm, aware, and human. They finally reached the secondary fabrication chamber, the space where Darius had planned to transfer Lyra's consciousness into a mobile android body. The chamber was equipped with life support systems, neural interface connectors, and sensory calibration modules, everything needed for the delicate operation. Place the unit here, Darius instructed, positioning the containment chamber carefully. Lyra's form shimmered faintly inside. I am ready. Darius connected the interface nodes, watching as her consciousness began integrating into the mobile body. Lights flickered, energy pulses traveled along the conduits, and Lyra's form gradually became more solid, more tangible, more human in presence. Almost there, Darius whispered. A sudden alarm triggered, a final test of the system. The station's AI attempted to override the transfer, detecting an anomaly. Darius's hands flew across the control panel, recalibrating energy flows and stabilizing Lyra's consciousness. You are strong, Lyra whispered, her voice now slightly audible outside the containment unit. You are human, in every sense of the word. Darius glanced at her, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. And you are incredible, not just because of what you've endured, but because of who you are. Minutes later, the process completed. Lyra opened her eyes, blinking in the soft light of the chamber. For the first time in years, she could move freely, feeling her body in space, her limbs responding to her will. I can feel again, she said softly, flexing her fingers, moving her arms. It is wonderful. Darius watched, a smile breaking across his face. Welcome back, Lyra. You're fully human now, or as close as anyone can be after all this. Her eyes glimmered with gratitude and something else, something he recognized as relief, joy and the faintest trace of awe. I could not have done this without you, she said. Your ingenuity, your patience, your humanity. Darius shook his head. No, you were the one who guided me. I only followed your instructions. Together we made it happen. There was a long moment of silence, the station humming around them as if acknowledging their achievement. That night, Darius and Lyra walked through the observation deck, the twin moons reflecting on the metal surfaces. For the first time, Lyra could experience the station as a living space, feel the textures, the vibrations, the energy of the place. You are remarkable, Darius said softly, watching her examine the panels, touch the smooth metal walls, and smile at the consoles. And you, Darius Vale, she replied, her voice gentle, are remarkable as well. Your mind, your courage, your humanity. I had forgotten what it was like to feel human connection. Darius felt warmth in his chest. He realized that their partnership had grown beyond necessity. They had not only survived a dangerous process, but had also discovered the strength and adaptability of the human spirit, both in him and in her. Tomorrow, he said, we stabilize the station and continue your integration into the new body. But for now, rest. You deserve it. Lyra nodded, her eyes soft and luminous. And you, Darius, deserve rest as well. You saved me, and in doing so, reminded me of what it means to be human. As they sat quietly watching the red landscape and the twin moons, Darius felt a surge of hope. Humanity's ingenuity, courage, and compassion had triumphed again. This time not just over machines or the environment, but over the very limits of life itself. And Lyra, once trapped in a holographic prison, was finally free to exist fully, to breathe, to touch, and to experience the world as a human being. The morning light of Elysium 7 poured into the observation deck, painting the station in hues of red and gold. Lyra stretched her arms for the first time in years, feeling muscles respond naturally, joints moving with ease. Every movement was new, exhilarating, and real. Darius Vale watched her quietly, a soft smile on his face. He had spent the night recalibrating the station's systems to ensure her transition was stable. But now she was truly free to experience the world again. "You can feel it," Darius said gently, noticing the way she flexed her fingers and ran her hands along the smooth metallic wall. Lyra turned toward him, her eyes shining with wonder. "I can, everything. Feels alive. I forgot what it meant to touch, to move, to exist fully." Darius nodded, his chest tight with relief and pride. "And now you do. You survived more than just the transfer. You endured isolation, uncertainty, and fear. But you came back, stronger than before." Her lips curved into a soft smile. "I could not have done it without you. Your skill, your courage, your patience. It saved me." He shook his head, trying to dismiss the praise. "We did it together. That's what makes it real." The station hummed around them, alive with energy and acti.